Welcome to the night shift.
And we welcome you guys to this special March Madness edition of The Night Shift. And I'm joined here by my co-host Isaiah Leung, who is usually the main host of The Night Shift, but I am glad to be back, baby, back on MI6 for another episode of me and Isaiah going after it in our little Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. Of course, you guys know I went to the Ohio State University, and Isaiah here, he's just a sad bandwagoner. But Isaiah, pleased to be joining the night shift tonight. Pleased to be in the host, and it's good because I know you're not in the mood to host today after that terrible performance by the University of Michigan.
Steven, I'm in foreign territory right now because normally when we do these shows where we break down what happened in the day of college basketball, we've done, I believe, three or four of these shows, and each of these shows that we've done, you are the one that is soaking because your Ohio State Buckeyes lost, while I'm over here, laughing my butt off at you, just like in your pain. And today is very different. And after all the trash that I talked about, how Michigan was more, or they were unequivocally better than Ohio State. They were gonna romp Ohio State. They were gonna stomp Ohio State into submission. Ohio State proves once again who is the big brother, and when it matters the most, they beat the Wolverines. Steven, to be honest with you, I don't know what Michigan is anymore. Michigan, football-wise, they're struggling big time. Jim Harbaugh's 0-6 or 0-5 against Ohio State. And then basketball-wise, Juwan Howard, yes, I know he beat Ohio State early on in the season, but when it matters the most, Juwan Howard choked just like Jim Harbaugh in football. I said Michigan's a basketball school. Well, I don't know about that because you can't really say you're a basketball school if you can't beat your main rival when it matters the most. I was really disappointed yesterday. I mean, if Michigan's not a football school, if Michigan's not a basketball school, they're not even a baseball school. So you might as well call Michigan a water polo school or a softball school now, because that's what they're really good at. And that's the only thing that they can beat Ohio State when it matters the most.
Or you might as well just call them a bunch of Higgins or maybe an Isaiah school, because all they do is choke, and then some more choke. But, Casey King coming in here. Welcome back, Stephen. Good to have you on air. Good to have you tuning in for yet another rendition of The Night Shift, Casey. And, of course, good evening to you as well, Casey. Casey saying, boy, Michigan went Higgins versus Ohio State. I couldn't agree more, Casey. They were a bunch of Higgins. And, I mean, as much as everybody criticizes how Michigan finished that game, I thought they had a pretty open shot over there with Williams, was it? Williams created open space and pulled up for that three-pointer. My bad, it was Mike Smith. Mike Smith pulled up for that three-pointer, got the step back, created the space. And, yes, you could have done better in terms of not running the clock out completely. Like, my philosophy is that if you're down one in the game, you shouldn't just run the clock out completely. You should look to get a quick shot. And then if you score, right, you're up and you play defense. And if you miss, it gives you the opportunity to foul and play for another possession. I'm not a big believer in just writing your your story arc and the game in stone. Don't etch it in stone where it's like if you make it, you win, you miss it, it's over. I am a strong believer as you get the best shot available. You don't necessarily have to run out the clock, especially if you're down by one. Now, if it's tied, I get it. Like, if it's tied, unless it's an open dunk, you want to run clock and you want to make sure you get the last shot. But if you're down one, it's about getting the most efficient shot out there regardless of clock drain. I could think they could have gone a little quicker on it, but I think he did actually, for what it was, he got a pretty clean look. And as we will talk later about the Illinois Ohio State game, before Illinois went over to overtime against Ohio State, granted, this one was a tie game with the shot clock and game clock running down, they had a very similar step back three from the left corner instead of the top of the arc, instead of like the middle of the 3-point line. And they missed that. They created an open step back three that they missed, which sent the game into overtime, did Illinois. So I have no problem with the step back three shot. I just think if you're down by one versus you're tied, it's about getting the best shot available.
Yeah, and before I go to the end of the game and talk about this, let's rewind to something that happened on Friday night before the games actually went down. I do not fear the Ohio State University. I'll say that one more time. I do not fear the Ohio State University. Ohio State has not impressed me one bit in either of their two wins against Minnesota and then Purdue. They got lucky in both of those two games. They are now going to go up against a Michigan team that is far better than everybody else in the Big Ten. Good luck, Buckeyes, because you're going to need all the tissues in the world, Trevor. You're going to need a box of tissues as well, Trevor, because all the tears are going to be coming down when Michigan just stomps Ohio State and gets revenge for all those losses in football. I can't wait, man. It's going to be a great game. Go Michigan and, go Juwan Howard. Kick Ohio State's butt. I did it again, Steven.
That, my guys, will most certainly, yes, you did, will most certainly be part of the Higgins compilation of our March Madness hot takes bracket. And, speaking of the bracket, let's go over into the bracket reveal, Isaiah. If you could share your screen, we are having a hot takes bracket this month.
All right, I'll pull up the bracket right now. But as I'm doing it right now, I'm going to give my thoughts on this Michigan game real quick before we get into the MI6 Sports Network hot takes bracket. Michigan, I don't know what it's about when they see the scarlet and gray, that when they see them when it matters the most, they just completely forget who they are. It really makes no sense whatsoever because
Isaiah loses again. Isaiah loses again. 10 games of losing. Isaiah loses again. Skull, 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 skull. Skull, 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 skull. Still keep on losing. Isaiah loses again. Isaiah loses again. Isaiah loses again. 10 games of losing. Isaiah loses again. He's worse than Stephen Wayne. He's worse than Stephen Wayne. Skills keep on losing. Skull, 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 skull.
Like I was saying, Michigan, whenever they see Ohio State in the big games, they just forget who they really are. The Wolverines yesterday, they had been playing amazing basketball this entire season. I mean, they're in the last game against Ohio State, they were raining threes on the Buckeyes, and then when they went cold, what did they do? They started feeding Hunter Dickinson in the paint and letting him dominate. Well, in this basketball game, Michigan completely forgot their defensive identity. They completely forgot how to shoot the three ball. I mean, everybody on the Michigan roster, if you look at it, besides Dickinson, they were ice cold from the field. I mean, Franz Wagner, he had a terrible game. Franz Wagner, I believe, only had only had 8 points in this game in 29 minutes of play. Mike Smith filling in for the injured Isaiah Livers, which was a big blow to Michigan. As Isaiah Livers was I guess he was declared out for the game during pregame warmups. I don't know how he hurt his foot, but he was declared out with a bone bruise before the game, and Mike Smith has to slot into the starting lineup. He puts up only 10 points in 33 minutes of play. Eli Brooks only had 12 points. Brandon Johns Jr., he only had 7 points. Everybody on Michigan, besides Dickinson, they were just ice cold from the field. And even if you're ice cold, you still have to be able to play great defense. That is what true winners do. Like, no matter like if you're ice cold or red hot, you have to play great defense. And Michigan, they just didn't do that in this game. You got to give credit to Ohio State and their defense. Ohio State was very efficient offensively yesterday in that game. And the thing about the end of the game that I was really upset by is the fact that two things. Number one, Michigan has the basketball. They're down 1 with 23 seconds left in the ball game, and I believe it was Mike Smith. Mike Smith that was dribbling the ball at the top of the key. Juwan Howard, what are you doing? You have 1 timeout left. Why don't you call that timeout and take that time to draw up a better play and regroup before the ultimate moment? Like, I don't understand why you would not use that timeout. It just boggles my mind completely. And then you look at Mike Smith. Steven, I know you said you didn't have a problem with it. The only problem you had with the Mike Smith shot was the fact that he took the clock all the way down. Well, the problem I have with it is Mike Smith decided to try to be a hero and be like Stephen Curry and go one-on-one. And I know he created space and stuff like that, but you don't need a 3 to win that basketball game. No, you just need a 2 to win that basketball game. And Hunter Dickinson, who is 7'1", he was going up against a guy who was 6'7", and he had strong positioning against the guy in the paint. You feed him the basketball, Hunter Dickinson turns around, and I think he makes the shot, and Michigan wins the basketball game. So that was a bad decision on the part of Mike Smith. The decision that would have been good would have been to make that pass to Hunter Dickinson for a good look at a game-winning 2-pointer, but instead he decided to go hero ball and try to win the game. I have issues with that, and also with Juwan Howard not calling that timeout. I think that's why I've been saying, Juwan Howard choked in the big moments. It's not because he lost the game. It's because the fact that he had that timeout in his pocket, but decided not to call it, and instead let his guys, run out the clock.
Yeah, I think absolutely that you have to give a lot of credit to Ohio State for their hot start. And this game really came down to 2 things. Ohio State off to a hot start and Michigan showing resilience trying to win the game. But it was too little too late. You let Ohio State get so hot from 3-point line. And I get it. Like when Dwayne Washington's shots are going to go in, they're going to go in. When his shots want to go in, he is easily one of the most dangerous players in not only the Big Ten, but all of college basketball. He's the type of guy who's, like Shree said, the most frustrating player to watch in Ohio State history, in that he jacks up so many ill-advised like 3-pointers and bad shots and everything. There were a couple times in the game last night and this afternoon as well where he's taking these shots and you're just wondering, why the hell are you draining the clock down in the middle of the first period and then jacking up an ill-advised 3-pointer to get like a shot clock violation or to graze the rim? He's a frustrating player to watch, and it almost came back to bite Ohio State yesterday afternoon. But, the one thing was that Ohio State did what they needed to do against a top-ranked Michigan team. They got off to a hot start. They hit their 3-pointers, and then down the stretch, they played tenacious defense. Even when Michigan made that huge run to end the second period and almost won the game, Ohio State was playing tough defense. They were playing physical basketball to make sure that they were not allowing easy offensive rebounds, to make sure that they were out there creating one-and-dones defensively. Obviously, they have trouble defending big men. It's shown. And honestly, this Ohio State team, I gotta say, man, they still have a lot of the same issues that I thought they had when I thought they were going to lose to Purdue on Friday, when I thought that they were going to lose to Michigan yesterday afternoon, and when I thought they were going to lose to Illinois today. They have definitely defied my expectations, but all of these wins they have had, 79-75 against Minnesota, 87-78 in overtime over Purdue, 68-67 against Michigan. These 3 wins that they had in the Big Ten tournament all came on the backs of a great start and then struggling to finish the game, struggling to close out the team that they face. A lot of the challenges that we talked, Isaiah, about when Ohio State did lose to Michigan and did lose to Michigan State, they are still there. Those same struggles are still there. They're still unable to consistently rebound and defend big men. I mean, Kofi Cockburn of Illinois was looking like Joel Embiid out there today. And against Michigan, Shree, for good reason, even though they won the game, he was very frustrated with how Ohio State played this game. But, finally, I got to say, in spite of all that, Isaiah, in spite of all the struggles that Ohio State had, in spite of me having my pick be the University of Michigan to win the national title this year in March Madness, this one game, the final rivalry game of the season, unless they meet in the national title game, Isaiah, it had to go down this way, despite all of their rebounding difficulties, despite Dwayne Washington's ill-advised shots, despite Ohio State doing Ohio State things and struggling to close out Minnesota, Purdue, and Michigan. They got the job done. They got the stop they needed. And finally, they won the game by 1 point in heartbreaking fashion, mister. But, if you don't want to comment further on it anymore, Isaiah, because I know I've embarrassed you enough, we can go into the MI6 March Madness Bracket Challenge.
Before I get into this, or before we get into the bracket, let me say this. I talked a lot of trash about Ohio State, and I mocked you so much the last 3-4 shows that we've done about Ohio State basketball. And I kind of knew something in the back of my head that it was going to bite me back eventually. And when I said that I wasn't fearful of Ohio State, I actually meant it. I wasn't fearful of Ohio State. I really thought that Michigan was going to win by at least 8 to 10 points. But, that's how basketball is. Basketball is a game it's a make or miss league. And Michigan, unfortunately, chose the wrong possible game to miss the shot. And, I want to go back to the Juwan Howard not calling the timeout. Steven, I don't know if you watched that ESPN 30 for 30 Fab Five documentary where Juwan Howard was part of that legendary Fab Five team. And the Fab Five, they ended because Chris Webber thought that they had one final timeout, and he called that timeout against North Carolina, I believe in the championship game, when they didn't have one, and he was assessed a technical foul. Well, this is the situation. It's kind of the same situation where it's the closing seconds, and you have a timeout this time. You have a timeout, but you don't call it. So it's a reverse of what happened in the Fab Five about 25 years ago.
But this was not a technical foul, Isaiah. They got an open shot. It was just Michigan doing Michigan things.
It was, but I still would have much rather them had fed it to the big fella, Hunter Dickinson, and let him get that shot against a 6'7" or 6'6" defender that he was going up against, because I think the probability of you making that shot is higher than the probability of you going for a three-pointer down just one.
Yeah, of course. I think there's a lot of agreement to be made there, and I think that you can definitely make the case that Dickinson, the guy who dominated Ohio State yesterday and dominated Ohio State in their last meeting, deserved to have the ball there to close out the game. But it is what it is. Michigan will enter the March Madness tournament as a 1 seed along with our Big Ten champs, the UIUC Fighting Illini. Shout out to my brother who is completing his PhD over there. But guys, if you haven't voted in the live poll yet, please vote in our live poll. Which Big Ten team will go furthest in the March Madness tournament? We've got a couple of options. We got Ohio State, Illinois, Michigan, and another team. Perhaps you think it's Iowa or Purdue that will go furthest in the national championship March Madness tournament. But with that being said, Isaiah, let's bust out that MI6 bracket because I'm sure you are excited to see how many of these ridiculous takes will show up on the MI6 bracket. How many of yours, that is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we teased this the entire week, and here is the moment. I present, ladies and gentlemen, our 2021 MI6 Sports Network March Madness Hot Takes Challenge. We did this, I believe it was back in December, where we did our 31 Days of Hot Takes Challenge. Well, now we are doing an MI6 March Madness Hot Takes Challenge where instead of 31, we are doing 64 hot takes and moments. If you guys can see the bracket right here, this is the bracket. Steven, tell me if you guys want me to zoom in. I can zoom in a bit more on this.
Go ahead and zoom in a little.
All right, so is that good?
Yeah, that's great.
All right, so our bracket is, we put it into 4 regions. So you got this side right here. This is our A region. Over here, down this part of the bracket is our B region. Then you got the C region, and then you got the D region. So this is our MI6 Sports Network Hot Takes Challenge bracket right over here.
But ladies and gentlemen, here we go. 1, 2, 3. But ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
Yep, here we go indeed, guys. We're going to have a very, very fun time discussing this Hot Takes Challenge. I know it's going to be a lot of fun, Isaiah. Just out of curiosity, Isaiah, who besides you has the most hot takes in the bracket?
So we had 64 total hot takes and moments, and out of the 64, I actually only took up 24 of it. So you, Callan, Furman, Sammy Sharp, and Shri Anand, and Trevor, you guys take up 40 of it. So it's basically you guys trying to take me down and try to prevent me from winning our MI6 national championship that we got right over there. But when I look at these matchups, Steven, I think they're very fair. You know, you have a lot of balanced matchups. Obviously, you have the USC matchup that we got, that we will have our first matchup, it being Keaton Slovis being the best quarterback at USC that I said versus Ryan's Adam Gase to USC. And then we've got another one where it was, I believe, hold on, I'm trying to find it. Oh, we have you saying Adrian Peterson is the greatest running back of all time versus Sammy's take of Devontae Adams is a byproduct of Aaron Rodgers. And then you also have, you have your Lamar Jackson Good Night song that you sang on one of the episodes of The Night Shift versus Shri getting toilet paper for his Secret Santa. And then we have, I Don't Fear Nick Saban against Mandalorian equals romantic comedy. Like it's just really balanced throughout the bracket. And I'm really interested to see, who comes out on top, because you never know. With all the matchups that we have, there's going to be upsets all over this bracket.
All right, before we move on to our next segment, Isaiah, go ahead and close out of the screen share. I want to ask the viewers, who do you guys think will win the MI6 bracket challenge? Will it be Isaiah or will it be the field? You guys taking Isaiah or the field? Just go ahead and comment down below. We're going to keep having the March Madness poll running for now, and then we'll just keep in mind and tally them individually based on your comments. But now, the biggest game of this weekend, as the Big Ten is obviously the best conference in college basketball right now, I want to go over the UIUC Fighting Illini, my brother's school, up against Ohio State this afternoon It was a hotly contested game. Ohio State started off ice cold. They were actually, correct me if I'm wrong, 0 from 13. 0 for 13 from the field to start the game, but they heated up at the right time, and they made this into a super close game and a very, very hotly contested overtime win for the Illini. Ohio State gave it their all, but they fell just short on their comeback. Isaiah, I turn to you. What did you see out of this game? And, I guess there's a little bit of comfort in that Ohio State didn't win the whole damn thing.
There's a little bit of comfort, but it still doesn't take away the sting of Michigan losing to Ohio State, because you know how big those Michigan Ohio State games are, not just for the university, but our rivalry, Steven. That's why today I went and got myself a pack of Italian sparkling wine that I'm drinking on the show to drown my sorrows in. But in terms of this game is concerned, Steven, it was a great game, like Casey King mentioned, but it came down to what you said when you were talking about the Ohio State-Michigan game and when you were talking about Ohio State's issues. Ohio State, they just choked at the very end. They don't know how to close games out. This game came down to what happened, like to where it is, because Illinois got hot in overtime, and also Ohio State just couldn't stop turning the basketball over. I think the score was like 89-84 in overtime, and Ohio State committed like 3 straight turnovers that basically sealed the deal. You cannot turn the basketball over 3 straight times in a championship game, and also in overtime, if you want to win. Every possession is just so crucial in overtime. And Ohio State, they did Ohio State things. They shot themselves in the foot in the end, and that's why they ended up losing this game. Ohio State just couldn't get bailed out anymore by either teams forgetting to call timeouts or other teams just being inferior to them. No, this Illinois team, you got to play a perfect game of basketball in order to beat this Fighting Illini team. That's just how good they are.
Yeah, I think this Illinois team, you could make the case they are the best team in the Big Ten right now. I still have my faith in Michigan, and maybe part of it, Isaiah, is to spite you, because overall, I guess I didn't really go over it, but I'm not convinced that, number one, that a lot of Ohio State's problems went away just because they made this phenomenal 3 to 4 game run against Minnesota, Purdue, Michigan, and Illinois, because none of these wins or losses were convincing. They all went down to the wire, and Ohio State did not look dominant in a single one of these games. They still have trouble stopping the big men. They still have trouble sealing the game late in the fourth quarter. They have problems closing out the game. So their problems have not disappeared. And I'm not convinced, Isaiah, that this Ohio State team is a better team than Michigan. I think Michigan is still the best team in the Big Ten. And this game, to a degree, kind of showed that Ohio State is a team that can only really win in one way, and that's a problem, is that they have to win through their three-point shooting. In this game, when did it get closely contested? Only when Dwayne Washington started going on fire, when C.J. Walker had phenomenal contributions in their starting unit as well, and Seth Towns made a couple of big three-pointers late in the game. Justice Sueing had a great game. But really, if they're not getting their baskets in the paint, or they're not getting it from three-pointers, it limits them. They have, like, if they're not getting their jump shots in the game, you saw what happened to start this game. They were 0 for 13 to start the game from the field. They had all their points on the foul line, and Illinois just managed to dominate them early on in the game. They seem to only be able to really able to win in a certain way. They can't win the game in multiple different ways. And today's comeback, while it did impress me, I was definitely impressed by the fact that Ohio State, for once, was coming back from a lead rather than protecting and blowing a lead. It's just still kind of the same narrative of Ohio State being a jump shooting team that isn't very tough down low, isn't very physical down low, and it's going to affect their tournament chances. This game came down to Coburn absolutely looking like Embiid, and I think this is a Final Four team. I'm being very harsh on this Ohio State team. I want to make it clear that I did not expect them to, pull off what they did in this tournament. I did not expect them to have the season that they've had. They've had a phenomenal year, and they've defied all expectations. Don't get me wrong. I think they were rated the 7th best team in the Big Ten entering the year, and they've proven the doubters wrong. And I think this is a Final Four team, but I don't think this is a championship team. I think this is a team that if they were to face Illinois in the bracket again, which they would if they get to the semifinals or the Final Four, I should say, I don't think they have the tools to beat them yet. I think this is a Buckeye team that just relies too much in the jump shooting philosophy and the small ball philosophy, where in college it just hasn't fully hit the scene yet. Small ball does not work in college just yet, not to the degree that it works in the NBA.
Well, Steven, I want to respond to your, point about Michigan being the best team in the Big Ten. As a fan of Juwan Howard and a fan of that Michigan basketball team, I'm doubting the Michigan Wolverines now, and it's because Isaiah Livers, who is one of Michigan's best players, and he's one of the Michigan's top leaders on that basketball team. He, like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Ohio State and Michigan, he suffered a bone bruise or during pregame, and now he's going to be out indefinitely, which means he probably will miss, if not like some, but all of the NCAA tournament. So with how important he is, and when you saw on Saturday, the Michigan offense just couldn't get any rhythm going without Isaiah Livers handling the basketball. I just don't see it. Isaiah Livers being out is a huge blow for Michigan. I have a feeling now that Illinois has overtaken Michigan as the top team in the Big Ten and a better team than Michigan, just because Livers is not going to be playing in the NCAA tournament.
And I think that's a fair observation. I think it's definitely very fair to say that, Michigan. You think Illinois has overtaken Michigan, correct?
Yes, and also Illinois, let's not forget, they blew out Michigan at Michigan by, I believe it was like 23 to 24 points with Isaiah Livers. And now Isaiah Livers, Michigan's best player, he's going to be out. So I just don't know how far this Michigan team can go without their leader and without their top player.
Okay, so I think that's definitely true. Like, down the recent stretch, Illinois has looked like the better team than Michigan. But I think overall, with the contributions of Hunter Dickinson, and some of the great players that Michigan has, I just think that they are more versatile and they can win in more ways than in Ohio State or in Illinois. They can dominate you in the post, but they've also got very hot three-point shooting. They were really hot against Ohio State in the first half in the last game they played before yesterday. And they showed it in the second half of last night's game as well. So this is a team that can get hot in a hurry. I just think that they can beat opponents in more ways than Illinois and Ohio State. Illinois is a grit and grind kind of team. They like to bruise you down low, but Coburn can't hit free throws. He's not a consistent free throw shooter, and it's going to be a problem in the tournament when, late in the game, in the title game, or even before that, you're getting fouled and you have to convert on those free throws. I just don't trust Illinois as much in those situations as even in Ohio State or in Michigan. I still see holes in this team, but we'll see, more when we talk about the overall March Madness tournament. Let's get into some of the comments, though. Casey King saying that he'll take the field over Isaiah in the MI6 Hot Takes Challenge is very, very surprising. Casey can't wait for the exciting March Madness tournament to commence on Thursday. Four play-in games, and then Friday morning we pick it up with a couple of real games, And then also saying that Ohio State versus Illinois game was a great game today, but one thing I can't help but feel, Isaiah, is I can't help but feel what would have happened if Justice Suing was not trying to show up and he just put the ball straight into the basket, because Ohio State did have that 0 for 13 start from the field. And just as soon, you didn't have to go reverse layup. You had a wide open break down the floor. This was when the game, I believe, was 0-0 or 2-0 in favor of the Buckeyes. And you could have easily laid that in or dunked that in for a score.
Yeah, I mean, I know your point, but I don't know. It just, I, I think that Justice Suing doing that and missing that layup, it really, all these Ohio State players, I think they lost their confidence over that because you saw him missing the layup, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, man, this might be that kind of game where we are missing layups and we're missing easy shots, and then like you said, they start 0-13 from the field and they get off to a really, really bad start. But it was really surprising, given how they started, that they actually bounced back and they caught fire towards the middle of the game. It's just too bad that in the end, Ohio State just shot themselves in the foot once again, and it cost them this game.
Yep. Couldn't have said it any better, Isaiah. I think that was a mini turning point. That was part of the reason behind our slow start is Justice Suing missing that open layup, the Cal transfer. He had a phenomenal game afterwards, and he certainly compensated for it, but it was a costly miss there. That was a 2-point swing that we did not need to start the game. You got to set the tone early on, and then, of course, Coburn goes down the floor, misses an open dunk, but the difference is, Isaiah, they're hustling. They grab the rebound, and they get it back and put it in. And that gives Illinois the 2-0 lead in that situation. And to start the game, when you have that kind of momentum swing, it's very, very costly. I think it cost Ohio State in this game. But let's go over some more of the comments. James saying, Casey, first of all, Illinois looks really good down the stretch going in the tournament. I agree. I think they're kind of the opposite. They're the ultimate anti-Ohio State. They don't rely too much on their shooting. They're more of a grit and grind kind of team, and they don't blow leads. They tend to, get into these close games and be able to close them. James saying, I agree with Steven. I still think Michigan is the best from the Big Ten, and I would agree. I think they kind of put a hybrid approach between Ohio State and Illinois with the shooting and the post presence, but they just have more ways to win than both of these teams, and I get it. They blew out they blew out Michigan without Ayo Dosunmu. That is a very valid point, Austin. But, it was one game. Michigan also got blown out by Minnesota very early in the season. Ohio State got beat by Minnesota early in the season. Anything can happen during the regular season, but this is March Madness now. And I know that Illinois is hot heading into March Madness, and Michigan had that heartbreaking loss against Ohio State. But a lot of times it's these heartbreaking losses and moments that can really wake up and rally a team behind its players and its coach. So I think we'll see a rejuvenated Michigan team that's looking to prove the doubters wrong. And I think we're going to see a national title run out of them. Are they going to win it? We will have to wait and see that. They're my pick to win the national title. And James saying it always seems that missed free throws late in the game matters the most in March Madness, and I couldn't agree more, James. Obviously it's a different year without COVID, but pre-COVID, you lose that home court advantage in March Madness, and you're in a more hostile crowd. You're not playing in the same stadium and everything. Every possession matters more, and you're constantly fighting the fear of being blown out, embarrassed, or upset by an underdog. There's all these bracket breakers, all these bracketologists that have expectations upon you, negative or positive. It certainly gets on a young boy's mind. And these players, remember, they're just young men. But going into our final segment, we would like to, hear everyone's thoughts on the March Madness tournament as I pull this up. Like, who do you guys believe is set to really win this entire thing? Maybe a couple of Cinderella picks that you guys have. But I'm going to start out here with my pick. I think Gonzaga's excellent on the west side of the bracket. I think UCSB can certainly be a sleeper team. They've always looked really great in the Big West division. And I think this side of the bracket in the West is one that Gonzaga is going to easily be able to dominate. And I know they're 26-0. I know they're the number one team in the country. But I think Michigan and the Big Ten, they just play tougher basketball. They're more complete. Gonzaga always finds a way to choke it in the tournament. So who knows if they're going to make it out of the West? I think they will. But my national title pick is going to be on this side of the bracket, Michigan from the East. I think they're going to be able to beat Alabama or whoever comes out of the East into that Elite Eight matchup. I think they're going to blast their way to the Final Four. So in my Final Four, I have Michigan rounding out the East, and I have Gonzaga rounding out the West. In the South, I'm still going to stick with the favorites here. I think Baylor is going to take the South. It's going to be very interesting because you have all these teams out here that are just more physical than this Baylor team. Oh, sorry. My pick would be Ohio State, but I think it'll be Ohio State and Baylor in the Elite Eight. But I think there's a lot of teams here that are more physical than Baylor, and that's where they can get in trouble. But I think Baylor is still an excellent team. They were obviously ranked number 2 in the nation for a reason. They may have faltered in the tournament just like Michigan did against Oklahoma State, both of them faltering against different OSUs. But ultimately, I think Baylor faces off against Ohio State. I have Ohio State rounding out the South. In the Midwest, I'm going to go ahead and take Illinois. I think Illinois right now is probably one of the most complete teams in college basketball. They are playing like the best team in the Big Ten. They're the 1 seed for a reason. I see them blowing out Drexel, Loyola, Chicago, or Georgia Tech. They're really not going to meet any resistance until the Final Four, in my opinion. Not even in the Elite Eight will they meet resistance. This is a team that's going to be dominant all the way until perhaps even the title game, but at least up until the Final Four. And so my Final Four is going to be Gonzaga. It's going to be Michigan. It's going to be Ohio State. It's going to be Illinois. And then my national title game, Michigan versus Illinois, with Michigan taking it. Isaiah, I know you love the fact that I'm picking one of your teams. Just kidding. I know you hate the fact that I'm picking one of your teams, but I got to continue the tradition. I picked the Niners to win the Super Bowl. I picked the Lakers to win the NBA title. And now I'm picking your Michigan Wolverines, Isaiah. I think that's one of the few times I'll call them your Michigan Wolverines to win the national title. But we will see. We'll see, how everything turns out here. The last thing is I did point out UCSB as a potential dark horse. Another team I really want to point out is Purdue, a team that battled hard against Ohio State. They battled hard against Michigan. This is an amazing big team. They've got Zach Edey and they've got Williams, Caleb Williams to round out that front court. This is a team that plays the exact opposite of Ohio State. They don't rely so much on their shooting. They're a grit and grind Memphis Grizzlies style team. But in March Madness, when the hoop shrinks, when free throws become more important, when you got those guys in the front court who can finish near the basket, put the ball back after bad shots and create foul line opportunities, that is a recipe for a great upset team. So that's why I think Purdue and UCSB are 2 of my dark horses. But Isaiah, I'll let you give your overall predictions and dark horses on March Madness.
Ooh, okay. So
we'll start in the West here.
All right. So starting in the West, man, this is like my second time actually looking at this bracket. Like first time looking at this bracket very, very closely. But when I look at this bracket or the West side of the bracket, I think Gonzaga, they're easily going to beat the winner of Norfolk State and Appalachian State. I think they're definitely going to get into they're definitely going to get into the Sweet 16. I have when I look at anybody else in the West, I think Iowa could be a threat in the West. Oregon as well, because the Ducks have been red hot the last several weeks. I think my 2 biggest threats to Gonzaga, I would say, has got to be Iowa, because I like Luka Garza so much, and I like that Iowa team, and also Oregon because they've been red hot in the Pac-12. But I definitely have Gonzaga, I think, winning the West. I think that they are just the best team in that West region. So I got Gonzaga going to the Final Four, just like Steven. And then we move to the the east side of the bracket. For me, I got Michigan. Even though I ripped Juwan Howard tonight for his stupid decision to, not call that timeout, and I ripped Mike Smith for his decision to shoot that shot. But Michigan, they're still a good team. I know the Isaiah Livers not being there, that's going to be a big loss for them. But I have confidence in Mike Smith to be able to handle the basketball, to be able to run the Michigan offense, and I have a strong belief in Michigan to be able to bounce back from a loss to Ohio State and rally and win the East region. When I look at some potential sleepers in the East region, watch out for Georgetown. This might be a surprising pick, Steven, but Patrick Ewing has those guys playing extremely hard. This Georgetown team, going into this season, they were picked last to finish the Big East, and it wasn't looking good for them. I think they started the season 3-10 after losing to Syracuse, and they finished 9-2 to end the season, including upsetting Villanova in the Big East Conference and just completely smothering Creighton. I mean, they were up where they were tied 18-18 with about 4 minutes left in the first half, and Georgetown goes on an 18-0 run. They finished the half up 36-18. They finished the game, I believe. I think they won the game by over 30 points. I mean, it was just a masterful performance by Georgetown. They played great defense. Offense might be an issue, but I still believe in Patrick Ewing and his boys, so watch out for Georgetown. And then you look at Alabama. I think Alabama could come or could challenge Michigan in the East. I like what Nate Oates has done with Alabama, just turning around that program completely. And also, another team I could see it coming out of the East would probably be Texas. I'm very impressed with what Shaka Smart has done with that Longhorns program. 1 year ago, Shaka Smart, before the tournament got canceled, Shaka Smart, everybody was wondering if he was going to get fired or not, and he just completely turns around Texas in 1 year time, and they win the Big 12, and they're red hot going into March Madness. But for me, I still got Michigan winning the East because I think they're still the better team out of everybody I listed. And then let's move to the South region. Let's move to the South region. I think Baylor is going to easily dismantle Hartford. Watch out for North Carolina, because North Carolina, they are like the sleeping giants. They were sleeping in the beginning of the season, got off to a very rocky start, but Roy Williams has completely turned that program around, and North Carolina and Roy Williams, they are white hot heading into the tournament, so watch out for them. Purdue, like Steven mentioned, that could be another sleeper team as well. And also Ohio State, they are a team that I think can challenge Baylor. I just think Ohio State, man, it's going to be hard for me to utter this because I really dislike Ohio State a lot, but Ohio State, I think, can get out of that region because Baylor just doesn't have the size. And Ohio State, when they match it with Baylor, they are going to be the favorites, in my opinion, because they're not going to be having to deal with a 7-foot big man or a 6'11" big man like Kofi Cockburn today. They will be dealing with a guy that's 6'8". They will be basically playing to their strength. So, unfortunately, I got to say it, I got Ohio State coming out of the South as well. And in the Midwest region, I'm looking at some of these teams right now, and none of them really impressed me. I mean, Illinois, we know what they can do. Houston, they're red hot going into the tournament, no pun intended there. Syracuse, they won a couple of games in the Big East tournament. I'm actually kind of surprised that Syracuse got into the tournament. Oregon State is another team. They're kind of like Georgetown, where nobody expected them to win the Pac-12 tournament, and they just come into the Pac-12 tournament and have a Cinderella run. But I still got to go with Illinois. So for me, I have the same Final Four as Steven. I got Gonzaga. I got Michigan. I got Ohio State because I just don't trust that Baylor team. And I got Illinois as my Final Four and my national championship. Get ready for this, Steven. It's going to be Ohio State and Michigan. We are going to see part 3 of that rivalry between the Buckeyes and the... Yes, we're going to see part 3. And Steven, the next time we do a show after an Ohio State-Michigan game, you are going to be the ones in tears and having to drink a big bottle of wine because I will be extremely jubilant because this time Michigan would not only have gotten revenge for their loss to Ohio State, but they will be hoisting the natty in Juwan Howard's second season. Give me Michigan to win it all. I'm picking the Wolverines to win part 3 against Ohio State.
Now, hold on a second, guys. This calls for some breaking news, definitely. Isaiah and me, who are always at odds, always going after each other, always talking about how delusional the other is, and always talking about how, one of us is the better analyst than the other, always talking about how we can pick games, we understand basketball, baseball, or football better than the other. We have not only, guys, the same Final Four. You might as well call this the MI6 Final Four as each other. But we have the same team winning the national title. That is insane, man. That is pretty freaking crazy. I never thought I'd see this day where me and Isaiah agreed so much on sports. I feel like we've agreed a lot today, Isaiah, in fact. And I just got to say, man, the MI6 Final Four, Gonzaga, Michigan, Illinois, and Ohio State. It's going to be a fun tournament. Let's get it.
Let me just say this. First of all, you picked Michigan just to get on my nerves. We know that when the tournament comes, you will 100% be rooting against whoever Michigan plays against. Yeah. Stay hyped. 3, 2, 1, right. You will 100% be rooting against the team or rooting for the team that Michigan plays against because you hate Michigan so much. I know damn well you did not pick Michigan because you truly meant it. You picked Michigan to spite me since you have been a Buckeyes fan for 6-7 years now, and you've been diehard supporter of the Buckeyes. You've been diehard Michigan hater. So there's no way, there's absolutely no way that you pick the Wolverines to win it all. I can't believe in it. It's not possible. It can't be. There's no way. No way.
Isaiah, I got one thing to respond to you.
Yeah. 3-6, mafia. Whoa. Hey, yeah. Whoa. Say what? Whoa. 3-6, mafia. It's going down.
You see that emblem right there, Isaiah? What does it say? No BS. I am picking Michigan to not only advance to the NCAA March Madness tournament final, but to win the whole damn thing.
I am shocked because I never ever thought that we would see this day where you pick Michigan to win something. I mean, you picked Michigan to win. It's a glass-shattering moment right now on the MI6 Sports Network. Steven, a lifelong Michigan hater, picked the Wolverines to actually win it all. I mean, my goodness, we might not see this moment for another 20 years. So might as well just enjoy it right now, because this is historic, ladies and gentlemen. This is a historic moment right there.
Certainly some earth-shattering news here. Me picking the Michigan Wolverines to win the entire thing. I guess I gotta say hail to the victors for the first time on the MI6 stream without being sarcastic about it, because I have them in my $20 tournament with Shri, and I'm hoping to win that $2,000 jackpot prize, damn it. So let's go. But with that being said, guys, we are going to shift into our final thoughts. First off, I want to thank all our viewers for such a great program. James Gonzalez, Casey King, Austin Morrison, Big Baby Jonathan Sofil. You guys have been awesome. Really appreciate your consistent support each and every week, each and every day. It was phenomenal reading some of your guys' comments about UCSB, about Michigan, Ohio State, and all of the shenanigans going on between me and Isaiah. I know that, some of you guys, and especially Shri, is not going to be happy about me picking Michigan to win the entire tournament, but I truly believe this is a great team. And you know what, Isaiah? I just had to do it. I had to create another MI6 moment. Maybe we'll have it in next year's bracket challenge or next year's Christmas holiday challenge, but I just had to do it, man. I think this is a good team, and I think we're going to have a very, very strong March Madness season. I couldn't be more excited to watch my Ohio State.
Well, first of all, like you said, let me thank the viewers for watching our show tonight and tuning in to see our shenanigans. I want to thank James, Casey. I also want to thank, Austin Morrison as well as Big Baby for tuning in. Big Baby, shout out to you. I know you had that big interview today with Mike Trudell. You did a phenomenal job with Mike. Really appreciate it. Go check out Big Baby's interview. It was phenomenal. And also Shardot Gupta as well. But Steven, my final thoughts for tonight's show is you better hope that Ohio State does not watch this video. Like the Ohio State administrators, they do not watch this video, because if they do and they catch wind of the fact that you picked the team up north in something, I guarantee you that they will disown you. You will be disowned from Ohio State. They will not let you go to any of their alumni events or any of the reunions or even step foot in Columbus and step foot on campus, because you now, my friend, are being labeled as a traitor for picking Michigan, the team up north, the team that Ohio State absolutely hates, to win the national championship. But I'm glad you did it, because now it means that I have a great GIF to show you whenever you talk about how, Michigan is so bad and all that stuff. Right here, you picking the Michigan Wolverines. And to answer James's point, you know what, James? I will be happy to write 2 essays if Michigan, in fact, loses to Ohio State. That is how confident I am. I mean, Steven, let's roll that that video from Friday night once again, because I will be saying that before the national championship. I do not fear the Ohio State University. I'll say that one more time. I do not fear the Ohio State University. Ohio State has not impressed me one bit in either of their 2 wins against Minnesota and then Purdue. They got lucky in both of those 2 games. They are now going to go up against a Michigan team that is far better than everybody else in the Big Ten. Good luck, Buckeyes, because you're going to need all
Stop it. Get some help.
Yes, I do not fear the Ohio State University, ladies and gentlemen. Michigan, I'm so confident that if they do meet Ohio State in the national championship game, they will beat the Ohio State. But it's going to be one hell of a game. And definitely after that game is over, we will definitely have to do another show because that will probably be the biggest game of our entire rivalry. But I want to also say, tune in, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Myself and Sammy Sharp will be joined by a special guest in Loro Antonio on Wild Sports Talk for our St. Patrick's Day special. You won't want to miss it, so tune in, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to an amazing episode of MI6. I can't wait to see what could potentially be a Michigan and Ohio State national title game. That'd be awesome. I know I'm picking my Wolverines, but you know who I'm rooting for all day, man. I just got to give the victors their props. You know, like I want Ohio State to win the tournament, but I think Michigan is still the better team and everything. I have them in my bracket challenge, so it'd be nice to win that money from Shree. But I'm still hoping for Ohio State to pull through as much as they can. I just don't think that this is a championship team just yet. I think it's a Final Four team, but I think it's going to be Michigan and Illinois in the national title game with Michigan winning, and I want to reiterate that. Isaiah, are you okay over there?
I'm having a heart attack right now because I think I just heard you say your Wolverines. Did you just say that? Did you just say
I did not say my... I think I meant my Buckeyes. I may have
you messed up and you said your Wolverines. We can go back to the archives later on and check it out. But I guarantee you, you said your Wolverines. I mean, welcome to the family,
guys.
Welcome to the family.
Guys. All right.
That
is going to wrap up our show, guys. Thanks again for a phenomenal show. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. And catch more of the MI6 tomorrow with our bracket challenge for Wild Sports Talk. And for the rest of the MI6 crew, this has been Stephen Wang. This is Isaiah from the Night Shift tuning out.